welcome to another video. My name is Heather, and as always, I'm reading with a vengeance, and I hope you are too. I hope everybody is doing very, very well. I don't have much of a life update other than, I guess it's kind of big news. We adopted another cat. Her name was Monsoon when we adopted her. Her name is now Nora. And we're still in the process of integrating her with Lucy and Jake. So she's not out and about right now. Right now, she's very comfortable in her own little room, enjoying some peace right now. Maybe I'll put in some video or some pictures of Nora. We love her. She has got a distinctive personality from Lucy. We just, for some reason, have now become completely enamored with Tuxie cats. She probably won't be our last. Keep your fingers crossed for us because it has been an ordeal. We've had Nora, it'll be 2 weeks tomorrow. They're still separated and still kind of hissing at each other through a baby gate. So keep us in your thoughts. And other than that, today, actually the day that I'm recording is my birthday. And you know, when you reach a certain age, birthdays really don't. It's just another day other than I have, everybody that cares about me or who I care about calling me and sending me messages, wishing me a good day. And I love that. That's the best part about birthdays at this point. My husband has to work today, so that's kind of a birthday present to me. I have all day to myself. But for that reason, we're not really doing anything today. We're going on a marsh boating expedition tomorrow. And maybe I'll share some video with that. And then we're having my birthday dinner on Monday. Oh, I went and got my free coffee over at Starbizzle, that you get every year. That's really the only time I go to Starbucks anymore is to get my freebie every year. Brown sugar, oat milk, shaken espresso. It is so freaking good. Anyway, so that's what I'm drinking. Grab your drink because I have a butt ton of books to talk to you about because I am so behind. I'm going to try to get through 10 of them today. Get yourself something to drink and let's have a proper chat about the books that I've read. Okay, first things first, let me tell you about the DNFs I've had recently. The first one was Endling, and I DNF'd it about 4 days before it was, announced on the long list for the Booker Prize. Oh man, it had such an interesting synopsis for me. Takes place in the Ukraine. It has to deal with nature. We have a character who runs her lab, her research lab out of an RV in the Ukraine, and she studies different species of snails. And then there's also a subplot of kidnapping a bunch of guys who are trying to get mail order brides from the Ukraine. It didn't grab me quick enough. And there was just way too much sciencey stuff for me to be engaged enough. So I DNF'd this one. Another DNF I had, I apologize, no offense, but this didn't work for me, but a subscriber recommended All the Water in the World by Aaron Caffel. This is about the not too distant future where kind of all the glaciers melt and more of the world is covered in water, and it follows this family who has taken up residence in the Museum of Natural History in New York. They call it Amen. And they live on the roof until this big storm comes along and they have to leave that. And I guess the rest of the story is their journey to find a new home. I just couldn't connect again with the characters. It just moved a little bit too slowly. It just didn't work for me. And maybe it was the timing. Yeah, I wanted to like it, but I just couldn't. And then I DNF'd 2 audiobooks in a row. And I think it had more to do with my state of mind, because I think I started listening to these books like the day of or the day before or even the day after we adopted Nora. And so I had all this stuff going on in my head and I couldn't focus. And so it might have been timing with these ones, but back to back, I DNF'd Palm Meridian by Grace Flahive. I'm not sure about that last name. I apologize. Sounds like a hoot of a story. It takes place in the not too distant future. Well, actually it takes place like in 2065 and you're in this senior citizens home. It looks like a good time, but it just didn't work for me. The final DNF was Bug Hollow by Michelle Hunovan. It started off decent and the synopsis sounded interesting, but then it went on this other track that I was not expecting, and so it was a track that I wasn't interested in. So yeah, that was a DNF for me as well. So the first book I want to talk to you about is The Friend by Sigrid Nunez. So this book came onto my radar when the movie came out, because the movie came onto my radar because it has this big, beautiful Great Dane. I believe they're called the Harlequin Great Danes. It had Bill Murray in the movie, and immediately I wanted to see the movie. And then of course I realized that it's based on a book. So I always like to read the book first, and I did. That's not true. No, I usually like to read the book first, but I didn't in this case for whatever reason. But I loved the movie, and usually, not always, the book is better than the movie. So I decided to read the book anyways, because I thought if the movie is so good, then I'm going to love the book. Well, let's talk about what it's about first. So we have an unnamed main character, and it's from her point of view. And her best friend and longtime mentor took his own life. For whatever reason, he left his dog, Apollo, which was this huge Great Dane, to be cared for by our main character, which causes all kinds of problems because she lives in New York City. She lives in a tiny apartment, and she lives in an apartment building that doesn't allow pets at all. So she's got some issues to deal with. So most of the book talks about her relationship with him and how it changed every time he got married. He was married and divorced like 3 times. He was her mentor and writing instructor. So she's a writer. He was a published writer. And so this book is a lot about the life of a writer and what it means to be a writer. And a lot of the book is her trying to figure out how she's going to make it work with this dog in her tiny apartment. But at the same time, the dog is also mourning and grieving the loss of his master. And at times that makes her grief worse, but it also helps her because she is really concerned about learning how to live with this dog and what this dog needs just to exist, and then also helping the dog through its grief as well. Caring for the dog distracts our main character from her sadness. I found the structure of the book interesting. You don't know if she is writing a letter to the mentor, or if she's journaling, or if she's writing a book of her own. So that's kind of how the narration of the book sounds. It's like one of those things, and I couldn't really pinpoint what it was. But mostly this is a book about mourning and grief and loss and the relationship, between dogs and humans. It's a meditation on writing and the writing life. In fact, I think that was the biggest problem I had with this book, is that the strongest focus of the book is the life of a writer. And that really didn't work for me, but I can see how it would work for a lot of people, specifically writers. I wish there was more between our main character and the dog. Interestingly enough, as much as this book is about grief and mourning, it didn't make me sad. There were a lot of anecdotes about a bunch of different things, not even pertaining to grief and mourning. Sometimes they went a little bit off track and I wondered where it was going, but it didn't make me sad. So there was that. I enjoyed the movie more because the movie definitely focuses on the relationship between the main character and Apollo, the dog. I loved the movie. I loved the dog. It's just one of those rare instances where I loved the movie more than the book. The one thing, of course, that kept me going through this book is I wanted to know and make sure that she made the right decision when it came to the dog. So I'm not going to spoil it. Yeah, I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. This was a decent book. It was well written, interesting structure, and yeah, I would recommend it. Next book I will talk to you about is Lula Dean's Little Library of Banned Books by Kirsten Miller. Of course, this one, when it came out, immediately got my attention because of, Little Library, probably referring to a little free library, and spoiler alert, it is talking about a little free library, and of course, banned books. This book takes place in a small southern town. I want to say it takes place in Georgia, and Lula Dean is a self-appointed crusader. She believes there are too many books in the local library in this town that is inappropriate for public consumption. And she goes on this crusade to ban those certain books from the local library. On top of that, she creates a little free library in her front lawn where she provides books that she deems more appropriate, like Southern etiquette and cooking, and I can't even remember the other titles that are in there. Meanwhile, Lula Dean's longtime rival, they went to high school together, and something happened back in high school, and they have been rivals ever since. Beverly, who is on the some board, I believe it's like the school board or the library board or something, and because she's on the board, she has all the banned books in a box and in her basement until the conflict is resolved. And Beverly's college-age daughter, Lindsay, who is openly gay, much to the chagrin of Miss Lula Dean, she finds this box of books, and she gets it in her head to go and put these banned books and replace all the books in Lula Dean's little free library and just switch out the covers so that you think you're getting the vanilla books in the little free library, but what you're getting is the banned books that Lula Dean doesn't want you to see. There's a lot more going on in this book than what the synopsis will lead you to believe. There's stuff going on with different people in this community, in the household. Race is dealt with in this book, white supremacy, anti-Semitism. So if you feel like this book is going to be a little bit too on the nose, too twee, I would encourage you to look a little bit deeper in this book because it does get into some other stuff. So you definitely do have to suspend your disbelief because obviously if you have an intention of reading a book about the joys of Southern cooking and you open up the book and you are immediately reading about a young girl's conversation with God and how she needs a bra and her love for pistachios and what she needs to do once she gets her period, you know pretty much early on that that's not the book. You're going to recheck the title pages, but that doesn't happen here. But that's okay. You just get past that. What ends up happening is different people read books that they wouldn't normally pick up, and it leads to self-discovery, and it leads to helping them resolve some problems that they've got going in their personal lives. I thought those stories were engaging and hopeful and delightful to read about. The overarching point of this book is the harm that censorship can do. If we erase things in our history that makes us uncomfortable, I'm not going to make this a cliche and talk about how we're doomed to repeat it. It just takes away important parts of our humanity. This is definitely a satire, and the people who are so freaking ignorant that they want to ban books, it's a joy to read how folks like that are ridiculed. Am I petty? Perhaps. One of the storylines is, a rape victim reading Speak by, is it Lori Halse Anderson? That's what that book is out there for. I want every rape victim to read that book. Is the content uncomfortable? Of course it is. Does that make it any less important? Of course not. So if you think that books should be banned to protect our children, you probably won't enjoy the satire for what it is. If you're a lover of books, which I'm pretty sure everybody who's watching is, and you believe books help us navigate through our feelings and our hardships and just the world around us, then you will enjoy this book. Oh, and any book where it ends up that the town librarian ends up being the hero, incoming unpopular opinion. Next up is The Wedding People by Allison Espach. Sorry about that. But anyways, this is a darling of Booktube and Bookstagram. Yeah, I didn't love it like so many people did, but I didn't hate it. So what is this about? This one follows two women, but mostly we follow Phoebe. Phoebe is a 30-something woman who has reached a point in her life where she no longer wants to go on living. And she makes a plan to end her life. She has just gotten a divorce, and she also is unable to have children. So she's reached that point where she's asking herself, what is the point? And so her plan is to go to this very luxurious hotel in Newport, Rhode Island, a town of old money. She goes to this hotel that she's always wanted to stay at, and she decides that that is where she's going to do it. That's where she's going to end her life. So she goes to this hotel. Meanwhile, at this hotel, the only guests that are booked at this hotel, besides Phoebe, belong to this wedding party of this woman, Lila, who's getting married. And it's a week-long affair of preparing for the wedding and the parties and the rehearsals and all that. Lila is a spoiled, everything must be a certain way woman, and she immediately realizes that there is a fly in her nuptial ointment. So Lila goes to Phoebe's room and confronts her and says, you cannot be here. This is the week of my wedding. And Phoebe tells her, because she's got nothing to lose, she doesn't care anymore. She's going to do what she's going to do, and it doesn't matter. So she tells Lila, here, don't worry about it. I'm not going to be here for very long. I plan on killing myself here. And Lila is more perturbed about how that will ruin her wedding week than she is bothered by the fact that this other human being is thinking about taking her own life. So they argue about it, and Lila begs her, please, 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 can you just postpone it until my wedding is over? Phoebe doesn't care, whatever. And the more they argue and talk to each other and get to know each other, they become kind of friendly, and they start to confide in each other. Lila is a certain way, and she has to have certain things a certain way, and she feels able to be honest with Phoebe. Lila very much cares about everybody else in her life, what they think of her. But with Phoebe, she doesn't care what Phoebe thinks of her. So Lila's able to open up more with her. And then, of course, Phoebe's not going to be around for very much longer, so Phoebe can be completely honest with Lila. So they end up confiding in each other. And in that being able to be honest and be completely themselves, they develop this relationship. Meanwhile, over the course of this week, Phoebe observes all the other people that are a part of this wedding. And in observing these other people, she uses these observations to reflect back on her life. So we get a little bit of her history on what brought her here now and making the decision that she has made. For the most part, I did want to see how this story unfolded and what happens to Phoebe at the end, and if her character arc, makes her less spoiled. The thing that bothered me the most about this book is that the dialogue just dripped of snark constantly between all of the characters, all of the time. Some snark is good and fun, funny, witty banter, but every single conversation in here was snarky and sarcastic. It started off as fun, and then it just got to be a little much. I can't remember a single conversation in here that was without snark. And when we're dealing with something so serious as, divorce and infertility and suicide, there needs to be some meaningful, serious conversations. And it was all just sarcasm and snark. And that was just too much. The pacing, I would say the very beginning, the pacing was good when you're meeting all the characters and everybody's just kind of descended on this hotel and, all the moving parts, and you're learning about all those moving parts. That was fun, and I was in for the ride. The middle dragged out a little bit, and then the end, I thought it wrapped up really well. And someone's at my door. Oh, I love birthdays. Or was I? Okay, so yes, I liked this. I didn't love it as much. Everybody's just gushing over this book. I thought it was okay. I mean, I'm glad I read it, I guess, but it was okay. The next book I read was Impossible Creatures by Catherine Rundell. This is a middle grade fantasy, and I really enjoyed this book. This was really, really a delight to read. If you've been watching for a while, you know I don't do well with adult fantasy or even YA fantasy, but middle grade fantasy, maybe that's where it's at for me. I truly enjoyed this book. So this follows Christopher, and he is visiting his grandfather out, I think, in the moors of England, and he discovers a hidden world when he's out walking along where he's not supposed to be walking, and he discovers this, I guess, portal, and he goes through it, and there's this hidden magical world filled with magical creatures. He meets Mal from this world, and she has the ability to fly. And what Christopher discovers with Mal is that the magical quality of this magical world, it's called, I believe, the Glimmery, is fading and dying, and it's causing all the magical creatures to die as well. And so they go on this quest together to find out how to save the Glimmery and to save all the magical creatures. And they come across these sphinxes and dragons and centaurs and all these other fantastical beings. And it's just lovely and delightful. I will warn you though, there was a scene in this book that it hurt my heart quite a bit. Even though that was painful for me, I would absolutely recommend this book. It was just magical. I think it's such a really, really good story to tell, because as Christopher and Mal are exploring and trying to find out what's happening to the Glimmery, they are realizing that it is not a natural phenomenon that's causing the Glimmery to fade and die out, but it is linked more to a problem of greed and power. Sound familiar? So I just thought this story was a really, really good one to tell, and I'm glad it's geared towards an audience of middle graders. This is a very important lesson to learn. This deals with themes of friendship and love and the importance of the natural world. This truly was a delight to read. It absolutely deserves all the hype and praise it is getting. I understand there is going to be a follow-up to this book. If you are in need of a palate cleanser or something just to lift you up and make you feel good, I would recommend Impossible Creatures. All right, second hot take of the video, another unpopular opinion. Beach Read by Emily Henry. Now, before you come at me, I didn't hate it. I didn't hate it. But here is my history with Emily Henry. The first book I ever read by Emily Henry was The People We Meet on Vacation, and I thought it was just okay. Also, just a little history if you're new to my channel, romance is not my go-to genre. I don't poo-poo it, but it's not my go-to genre. So with that being said, I thought The People We Meet on Vacation was just okay. I mean, I didn't understand the hype. Then she came out with Book Lovers, and of course, being a book lover, I'm like, well, that would probably be more my speed. And there was a ton of hype surrounding it. And with Book Lovers, definitely the hype was deserved. I loved Book Lovers. And then all this time, during the time I read those two books, you know, everybody that talked about Emily Henry, who'd read all of her books, more often than not, everybody's favorite was this one, Beach Read, which was her first book, I believe. And I thought, well, I definitely need to get to that one, because if it's everybody's favorite after reading Book Lovers, then I'm going to love it too. But I didn't. And maybe it was overhyped. Maybe I set myself up for disappointment. Who knows? But I definitely didn't like this as much as I liked Book Lovers. I didn't hate it. Now, I understand that the Great Lakes of the United States, Lake Erie, Lake Superior, Huron, and the others, I understand that they are so huge that if you're on the shore of one, it looks like an ocean. And of course there's sand, and yes, it would be a beach. But when I think of beach read, I think of a coast of an ocean. But it takes place at a lake house up in Michigan. Okay, that is not beach read. So I think this title is a little bit of a misnomer. That's just me. But anyways, you're following January. January is a romance writer, and she is dealing with writer's block. She's also dealing with the recent death of her father, and she goes to live at his beach house to clean it out before she can sell it, and to hopefully help her deal with her writer's block. She's also dealing with the fact that she finds out that her father was unfaithful to her mother, and her mother won't talk to her about it. And so she's dealing with all of that. Meanwhile, her neighbor is another writer who she went to college with, and in January's mind, he is her arch nemesis, and he is a literary fiction writer. This is supposed to be like enemies to lovers, but when they finally start to talk to each other and to become somewhat friendly with each other, you realize that they were not ever enemies. They were only enemies in January's mind. They were, I guess, somewhat rivals because he was, I guess, in January's mind, more talented than her. The only thing he remembers about her was that she was attractive and that she was a romance writer. But in his mind, they were never enemies. Anyways, so they become friendly with each other. He's lived there for 5 years. He has friends in the community, one of which runs a bookstore and runs a book club. They end up going to together. Gus is also dealing with writer's block, and they decide to help each other with their writer's block by kind of having either a dare or a bet with January writing literary fiction, and Gus will try his hand at writing romance. To help them try to play out this bet in writing each other's genre is they go on kind of pseudo dates where they'll do things that only January likes to do, but he would never think of doing, and vice versa. For instance, like country western dancing, which she thinks is absolutely super fun, and he's like, what the heck am I doing here? I think what's intended is comedic falling in love ensues. There's a subplot that's going on here that I don't understand the point of the book. Gus is researching for his book a cult, a local cult. There's quite a few pages written about January and Gus interviewing people from this cult, going to this compound where the cult resides and doing some snooping around, and for kind of a rom-com, it felt out of place for me. A lot of what I loved about Book Lovers was the dialogue between the two main characters was witty and engaging, and it felt relatable and real, and it just seemed more authentic to me. In here, I thought the dialogue was boring, and when it wasn't boring, I felt it was forced. I just didn't feel the chemistry between the two characters. This was just okay for me. There was dialogue between January and her best friend Shaddy, I think is her name, that I thought was the best part, or the best dialogue of the book. The supposed resolution for January's dad's infidelity, I didn't think was enough to make you forgive him for it. And I think, not that we should have to forgive him, but I think that was like the goal of it, was to help the reader forgive and have January forgive her dad and understand what was going on, with her mom and dad. And then January having a discussion with her mom to try to resolve all this was not enough. I just didn't feel like that was resolved enough. So this left me wanting more, but not caring enough to be mad about it. So yeah, this was not my favorite, like it is so many others. If this is your favorite Emily Henry, but you haven't read Book Lovers, you're missing out. But that's just me, I guess. I don't know. I'm not sure if I will read another Emily Henry. I mean, I have the physical copy of Happy Place, so I don't know. But this was a disappointment for me. Am I alone here? Am I an outlier? Did you guys love this the best? Did you like this one more than you liked Book Lovers? I would love to hear what you think about that. Next book I read was William by Mason Coyle. This one I enjoyed the shit out of. This is a blend of sci-fi and horror, and it has vibes of Ex Machina, the movie, if you've ever seen it. This one follows Henry, who is a genius robotics engineer, but he's also an agoraphobe. And he runs his lab out of like in the attic of his own home. And he shares this home with his pregnant wife, Lily. Henry has developed a somewhat sentient AI doll, if you will, William. And he has kept this project, the William project, secret from Lily. But then Lily invites Paige and Davis over, who are colleagues of Lily's. They come over to have dinner with them, and Henry kind of perceives some affection between Davis and Lily. Because of this, he decides to reveal William to not only Lily, but to the three of them, to Paige and Davis. Stuff starts to happen. So not only is William a semi-sentient AI robot, but the house that Henry and Lily live in, it's a smart house. What starts to happen once William meets Lily and Paige and Davis is the AI robot and the smart house kind of start to work together to imprison Henry and Lily and Paige and Davis. And then like all this other bad stuff starts to happen. And the way it unfolds in the story, because first William's behavior is charming at first. Lily and Paige and Davis are at first enchanted by, oh my gosh, what a creation. Wow, well done. What a clever engineering endeavor this is. But then it slowly goes from that to unsettling to horrific. As it unfolds, it is just terrifying in the most delicious way. I could not put this down. On top of all of that, with William plugging into the house and taking control of the security system and making all this crazy stuff happen, on top of all that, there is a twist that I should have seen coming, but I didn't, and it was genius. I had such a great time with this book, and I was terrified. This is so timely with all the AI and the danger of AI, or the potential danger of AI. This was a heck of a ride. And if you are looking for spookiness, haunted house kind of spookiness, but a modern take on haunted house with smart houses and go from convenience to imprisonment, yeah, I highly recommend this if you want a good scare. It was so much fun to read. The next book I read was Automatic Noodle by Annalee Newitt. I thought the cover and the title was quite charming. And then I read the synopsis, and I immediately thought of the Monk and Robot series. It had cozy sci-fi vibes to it. So I listened to this because I had the free ARC for it. And this follows a group of intelligent robots. I believe their names are Stay Behind, Hands, Cayenne, and Sweetie. And they all have individual personalities. They reactivate in a post-war San Francisco. Kind of an apocalyptic type war has happened, so it's not in the too distant future. They decide to open up a noodle shop and kind of use their resourcefulness and their intelligence to live their own lives free of humans. But then they start getting a series of one-star reviews that is causing business to go downhill. It talks about how their success attracts negative attention, which is completely relatable to the world we live in now, and how their business is trolled online with fake one-star reviews. Basically, the story is them trying to come together to figure out how to resolve this conflict and to make their shop a success. The themes of the story really highlights, a desire for community, and self-determination, and how really the best way to combat bigotry and hate is to collaborate with their customers and other robots and work together and to create this community that they so desire. So this definitely was a cozy sci-fi. You know, you are dealing with serious themes of hate and societal collapse and prejudice, but it's paired with the desire for community and joy and hopefulness for a better future. I really do like stories like this. This one didn't quite work for me. I don't know if it was because I was so hopeful for another monk and robot feel. It didn't quite have that coziness for me. I thought the robots here, the main characters, they were cute and sweet. It kind of was a little bit difficult at first to kind of tell who was who and distinguish their personalities a little bit hard to follow at first. But then it got a little bit better. I didn't love this, but I thought it was cute and it was definitely cozy. I saw what the author was trying to do. If you don't set yourself up for disappointment like I did and you like a cozy sci-fi, I highly recommend this. Absolutely adorable. It was cute for what it was, but don't be looking for Monk and Robot. Just do yourself a favor and kind of go in with a fresh expectation of just cozy sci-fi. The next book I read was Nightwatching by Tracy Sierra. This has been sitting on my shelf since it came out. I'm so glad I finally got to it. This is a story about a mother of 2 young children, and she is home during a blizzard. This happens like on page 1. She wakes up one night to check on her kids, and she sees an intruder in her home. She gathers her kids and she goes and brings them to this secret little cubby hole down in the basement that if you don't know it's there, you won't ever find it. And they hide while they can see through the cracks a little bit what this intruder is doing. The intruder is looking for them in the house. The main character, what is her name? And hopefully I did say Nightwatching, right? Because I also read a book called Night Watcher. I'm not going to talk about it in this video, but I read Nightwatching and then Night Watcher. I should also read Night Watch, but that's a different video. Does it ever say her name? What the hell, man? Doesn't matter. Anyways, she's looking out through the cracks and she realizes that she recognizes the intruder, but she can't quite put her finger on what she recognizes him from. All of this unfolds really, really quickly at the beginning. And if I was any other type of person, I would have been riveted from page 1. And I should have been riveted. And you will be too, if you're not an overthinker like I am. The reason I had a hard time getting into this book, even though it opens up with a bang, all I could think about at the beginning is all of this is happening within the first 10 pages. What is supposed to happen in the next 340 pages? The intruder's already in her house. She's already hiding. Is she going to escape? What is she going to be found by the intruder and killed or interrogated, or what is supposed to happen? The other thing I kept overthinking was if this entire book ends up being some kind of fever dream because of some mental issue she's got going on, that's going to really upset me. I don't like to be tricked, okay? But it wasn't. This is a psychological thriller. Our main character is dealing with lots of stuff. And while she's trapped in this little room with her children, which can you even imagine? You've got an intruder in your house and it's already terrifying to try to keep yourself safe and keep yourself hidden and quiet and everything. But then to also keep 2 young children, they're both under the age of 10. How do you get them to understand that they have to be quiet? It was very, very high tense, very high tense. And then she also ends up leaving her kids there because she realizes that the only way for them to get out of this alive is if she somehow gets out of the house to go get help. She doesn't have her phone. The whole time that she's either in this cubbyhole or on this journey to go get help, she's having flashbacks of her history and her childhood and some previous experiences that are kind of dictating on the decisions that she's making now. And then she's also trying to think of, where does she know this guy? It also gets into her struggles of being a new mom and her struggles with her vitiligo that she has and how that's shaped her relationships with her husband, with her father-in-law, and that's a whole other thing too. And what this book is truly about is how past trauma can affect a person's present day experiences, and even more so on how a woman's perceptions of danger and claims of distress can be dismissed by society and how harmful that is. It's infuriating in parts, but it is written in such a way that it makes you, the reader, question her as well. So it doesn't forgive that dismissal by society, but it makes you understand a little bit. So you're not as infuriated with the other characters who are not believing her story, because some of it is outlandish. I found this to be very well written and telling two sides to the same story. I thought that was really, really well done. Part of the reason why it was really, really well done is Tracy Sierra has a background in being, I believe, like a social worker when it comes to domestic violence. So she understands the challenges that victims of abuse are faced with. It comes through in this book. The themes that are in here are very well handled, I thought. And I thought the ending was very satisfying. I mean, there was a gasp moment here. Really, really good time with this book. If you had your eye on this book, pick it up, especially now that we're in spooky season. This is a good one. And last but not least, I read Confessions by Catherine Airy. I thought that I was going to love this book. I should have loved this book. And perhaps if there was a little bit more editing, I could have loved this book. I didn't hate it. That should be the theme of this video. I didn't love it, but I didn't hate it. The synopsis seemed like right up my street. We have a set of characters that are connected to each other, and their stories are told in different time frames. So we start off following Cora, who is 16 years old. It is September of 2001 in New York City. Her father is at work in the North Tower. You basically follow Cora as what happens on the morning of September 11th happens. And for several days, if not weeks, she is kind of walking around looking for her father, and then she's seeing all the posters that people put up that are looking for their family members. And that whole first section of the book was completely engaging. I really, really enjoyed that part of the book the most. And at the end of that first section with Cora gets a letter from an aunt that she did not know she had. Her mother had died 7 years before the events of September 11th. And she discovers in this letter that her mother, who is from Ireland, has a sister, Roisin, who still lives in Ireland. And Roisin says, if you want to, you have family here in Ireland and you are welcome to come. And then the next section of the book takes place in the 1970s, and you're following Cora's mom, Mare. It's an Irish name, but I'm going to say Mare for the purposes of this video. And you're following her and her sister Roisin as they grow up in rural Ireland, and how Mare meets Cora's father and how Mare ends up in New York City. And you kind of learn about the relationship between Mare and Roisin, and how, sibling rivalry and jealousies, and how it causes their paths to diverge. And that section was okay. It slowed down a little bit, which is unfortunate and unexpected, because usually I really enjoy storylines that follow sisters and the relationship and getting through hardships and stuff like that. But this one just didn't land with me very well. And then we have the third part of the story that takes place in 2018, and you are following Laika, who is Cora's teenage daughter, and you are back in Ireland, I believe, and they are still living with Roisin. And at this point, Cora is an activist for Ireland's abortion referendum, and so she has kind of a disconnected relationship with Laika because she's so wrapped up in her activist activities. But because Laika is on her own so often, she discovers in her teenage curiosity some buried family secrets in the attic of the family home. So I liked the story. I liked the structure of the book. I connected with the characters. The atmosphere was very, very well done. I felt like I was in New York City on the afternoon of the 9/11 attacks. I mean, that was eerie how well written that whole section was. And I felt like I was in rural Ireland in the 70s. I even liked the connections with the 3 sections of the book, although it was somewhat messy. I think it could have been tighter. This book definitely needed more editing in length and in story. It just could have been brought in a little bit. Is this a debut? Yes, this is a debut novel. I will definitely be interested to see what else she comes with, because for the most part, I like this book. I liked where it was going. I like what it was trying to do. This one just wasn't quite executed in the best way that it could have been, at least for my taste. Of course, we're dealing with generational trauma and how it shapes people and their identity and the relationships. It gets a little bit into reproductive rights, but not as much as I would have liked, as it could have, as it should have. There was a storyline about a video game and who wrote the video game and the artwork for the video game that I thought wasn't well executed. I thought it was a little bit overambitious and too much. There was a lot going on in this book. I don't think the storyline about the video game was needed. I don't think it added to the story. I'm glad I read it. I'm glad I was introduced to this author. I didn't love it as much as I expected to love it, but I did enjoy it enough and would definitely recommend. So that is it. Those are a lot of the books that I've read in somewhat recent past. Have you read any of these books? I would love to hear your thoughts on them. If you have read any bangers in the recent past, I would love to hear about them. I'm always up for recommendations. Doesn't always work, but I love to hear recommendations from you guys. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all next time. Bye-bye.